Melissa Grant was the kind of security guard everyone trusted, calm, professional, and always in control. But beneath the crisp uniform and steady smile, she was hiding a secret so bold it would turn an entire shopping plaza into the scene of one of the most shocking betrayals anyone had ever seen. Melissa Grant had a reputation for being the kind of employee every company dreamed of having. She was reliable, polite, and meticulous about her work. At Ridgeview Plaza, a small shopping complex just outside the city, she quickly became known as the backbone of the night shift. While other guards came and went, Melissa stayed. She never complained about the late hours or the quiet emptiness of the mall after closing. She carried herself with calm authority, walking the long, polished corridors with her flashlight in hand, checking each door, each camera feed, each shadow. Nothing ever seemed to escape her notice. The management trusted her completely. When new hires came in, Melissa was the one who trained them. She showed them how to file reports correctly, how to handle alarm malfunctions, and what to do if they ever found themselves in an uncomfortable situation with loiterers or shoplifters. Her professionalism made her stand out, and the tenants of the plaza often left small thank you notes for her around the holidays. Some even said they felt safer knowing Melissa was on duty. To everyone else, she was simply doing her job, but for Melissa, there was something deeper. She liked the sense of control that came with the position. Every night, the same pattern repeated itself. The last customers left, the lights dimmed, and the building settled into silence. Melissa began her rounds, her footsteps echoing softly on the tiled floor. The security cameras recorded her calm movements, the steady rhythm of her inspections. The hum of the air conditioning filled the halls, and the faint flicker of fluorescent lights gave the empty space a strange stillness. At first, she found comfort in the routine. But as weeks turned into months, that silence began to feel different. The quiet started to press in on her, heavy and unrelenting. She began noticing small things that most people wouldn't. A broken latch here, a forgotten receipt there, a corner where the camera angle didn't quite cover. It fascinated her how vulnerable everything really was when no one was paying attention. People assumed the cameras saw everything, but Melissa knew better. There were blind spots, gaps in the schedule, moments that could slip through unnoticed. She started to wonder how much she could get away with if she ever wanted to. At first, it was just a thought, a passing curiosity born from long hours alone. But curiosity can be dangerous when it's left to grow in the dark. Melissa had begun to see the mall differently. The stores weren't just stores anymore. They were opportunities, puzzles waiting to be solved. She could walk anywhere, open any door, and nobody would question her. She told herself she would never misuse that access, but the idea lingered. Still, to everyone else, nothing had changed. She remained the dependable, rule-abiding guard who always had things under control. She smiled at the tenants, chatted with maintenance workers, and filled out her reports with the same neat handwriting she always had. But under the surface, something was shifting. The long nights, the sense of power, and the thrill of being invisible were slowly feeding something inside her, something she didn't fully understand yet. And one quiet night, as she stood in front of the darkened jewelry store, the faint reflection of her own face staring back from the glass, a thought crossed her mind that she couldn't shake. Nobody was watching her, nobody ever was, and once that realization settled in, everything about her job started to feel different. It began with something so small that Melissa almost convinced herself it didn't matter. One evening, as she made her usual round through the plaza, she noticed that the owner of a small boutique had forgotten to lock the register. A single envelope sat inside, thick with the day's cash. She hesitated for a moment, telling herself she should report it in the morning, but the thought stayed with her. Nobody else would be checking that store until the next day. Nobody would know she had even seen it. Her heart raced as she reached out and picked up the envelope. It felt heavier than she expected. She slipped it into her jacket pocket and told herself she'd return it later, just as a test, just to see if she could. But she didn't return it. The next morning, she told herself that maybe it had been fate. Maybe the owner had made enough money to not notice. Maybe she deserved something small for all the nights she'd spent walking those halls alone. She used the money to pay a few bills and didn't think about it again. That single choice, so quiet and unseen, became the moment she stopped being just a guard. After that, things changed subtly. Melissa started to see opportunities everywhere. She knew which stores didn't count their cash every night, which ones turned off their cameras after hours, and which employees were careless with keys. Each discovery made her feel smarter, more powerful. She'd always thought of herself as someone who followed rules, but now the rules felt like a game she was smart enough to beat. The thrill of getting away with it was stronger than she expected. It wasn't about the money, it was about control. She realized that she could bend the system around her without anyone noticing. When a shipment of expensive headphones went missing from the electronics store, Melissa was the one who filed the report. She described how she found the cut seal, the open box, the signs of forced entry. Nobody questioned her. They trusted her version of events completely. The more she succeeded, the bolder she became. She started keeping track of the mall's vulnerabilities in a small notebook she carried in her bag. It looked like regular shift notes, but inside she had written things like camera 3 blind spot by stairwell and storage door lock sticks if pulled upward. She told herself it was just for safety, that knowing the weak points helped her do her job better. Deep down, she knew that wasn't true. Still, she remained calm on the outside. She smiled during morning briefings, chatted casually with the other guards, and even offered to take extra shifts to cover for people who needed time off. No one suspected anything. If anything, her bosses admired her dedication. But when she walked the halls at night, she felt untouchable. The same cameras she once relied on for protection now felt like props in a play she was directing. By the time the first internal audit came and went without any mention of missing items, Melissa knew she'd crossed a line she could never return from. The rush she felt every time she unlocked a door she wasn't supposed to, every time she pocketed something small and untraceable, became her secret addiction. The mall no longer felt like her workplace, it felt like her territory, a world where she set the rules and decided what was fair. And as the nights passed, the idea that anyone could stop her seemed more and more impossible. Melissa's confidence grew with every passing week. By now, she was operating like someone who believed the world revolved around her schedule. She had mastered the timing of patrols, memorized the shifts of every other guard, and knew exactly when each camera feed reset. Her reports were flawless, her demeanor uncheckable. Nothing about her behavior suggested guilt. If anything, she looked even more composed than before, but not everyone was fooled. Jake Hollister, a guard recently transferred from another site, noticed things others had missed. He was quiet and observant, the kind of person who didn't speak much but paid attention to detail. From the moment he joined the team, he admired Melissa's discipline. She trained him on his first day, walking him through the routes and procedures she had perfected over the years. Yet something about her precision felt rehearsed, as if she was always performing. After a few weeks, Jake began to see patterns that didn't make sense. Melissa always volunteered for certain areas, the back corridors, the loading docks, the storage rooms behind the smaller stores. She often insisted on patrolling those alone. When Jake offered to help, she would wave him off with a smile, saying she had it covered. On some nights, her rounds took longer than necessary, and her radio stayed silent for suspiciously long stretches of time. He mentioned his observations casually to another co-worker, but no one took him seriously. Melissa had been there longer than anyone. Her record was spotless, her reputation untouchable. If there were discrepancies in reports or timing, people assumed they were clerical errors. Management liked her too much to question her. To them, she was the model employee. Jake didn't push the issue, but his curiosity grew. One night, while checking the control room logs, he noticed something strange. A few security cameras had been marked as temporarily disabled on nights when Melissa worked alone. They always seemed to come back online right after her shift ended. It could have been coincidence, but Jake didn't believe in coincidences. He decided to make a quiet change. One of the cameras in the service corridor had been marked as broken for weeks, a spot Melissa often walked through. Without telling anyone, Jake fixed the connection and adjusted the angle just slightly enough to cover an area that had always been out of sight. He didn't mention it in the logbook, he just waited. The next few shifts passed uneventfully. Melissa went about her duties as usual, calm and confident. Then, one night, Jake stayed late to review the footage from the newly repaired camera. What he saw made his stomach tighten. Melissa appeared on the screen, unlocking a door she had no reason to open, glancing around before disappearing inside for nearly 10 minutes. When she came out, she carried a small bag and locked the door behind her like nothing had happened. Jake saved the footage and kept quiet. He wanted to be sure before taking it further. For the next week, he continued to monitor her pattern, collecting clips and timestamps. The evidence grew with each shift. By the time he was ready to report it, he knew one thing for certain: Melissa Grant, the plaza's most trusted guard, wasn't protecting the place anymore. She was exploiting it. And though Jake didn't know it yet, his decision to expose her would set off a chain of events that would spiral far beyond anything either of them could have imagined. The night everything came crashing down was colder than usual, the kind of night when the mall felt like a hollow shell. The tenants had closed up early because of a winter storm warning, leaving the building emptier than ever. Melissa was the only one scheduled for the full overnight shift, and she liked it that way. No interruptions, no questions. Just her and the echo of her footsteps on the tile. She carried her flashlight and key ring like always, but her mind wasn't on her duties anymore. She was focused on the jewelry kiosk in the center atrium. It wasn't the first time she had thought about it. The kiosk was small and easily accessible, its inventory light but valuable. She had been studying its setup for weeks. She knew when the security sensors were turned off for cleaning, how long the alarm delay lasted, and which camera had a blind spot behind one of the decorative pillars. She'd run the scenario through her mind 100 times, planning every movement down to the second. That night, with the storm outside and no one expected to visit until morning, she decided to make her move. At around 2 in the morning, Melissa approached the kiosk. The mall was silent except for the faint hum of the heating system. She slipped her master key into the lock, her hands steady despite the adrenaline rushing through her chest. The lock clicked open smoothly. Inside, trays of gold and silver jewelry shimmered faintly in the low light. She moved quickly, selecting only the most expensive pieces: chains, rings, bracelets, placing them carefully into her black duffel bag. When she was done, she locked the kiosk again, wiped down the surfaces with a cloth, and walked away as if she had just completed a routine check. The next morning, she wrote up a report claiming the kiosk had been broken into. She described signs of tampering, a damaged lock, and missing merchandise. She spoke with the police calmly, even suggesting possible entry points for the supposed burglar. Nobody questioned her. Her professionalism and composure worked like armor. Management thanked her for her quick response, and she even received a note of appreciation for her attention to detail. But what Melissa didn't know was that Jake had already reviewed the footage from that night. The supposedly broken camera she always ignored had caught everything: her unlocking the kiosk, her begging the jewelry, her walking away. The evidence was undeniable. Jake went straight to their supervisor, who contacted the police. By the time officers arrived at the plaza, Melissa had already vanished. She had clocked out, turned in her badge, and disappeared with nearly $80,000 worth of jewelry. The authorities launched an immediate search, tracing her car and checking nearby bus stations. For almost 2 weeks, there was no sign of her. Then an ATM withdrawal 3 hours away triggered an alert. Investigators followed the lead to a small motel near the edge of a rural town. In the parking lot, they found her rental car with the trunk open and the jewelry inside, neatly packed but abandoned. The discovery raised more questions than answers. There was no trace of Melissa, no signs of struggle, no witnesses. It looked as if she had simply stepped away and never come back. The police expanded the search to nearby woods and riverbanks, combing the area for days. It was as if she had vanished into thin air, leaving behind only the evidence of her double life. The woman who had once been the most trusted person in Ridgeview Plaza was now the center of a growing mystery. For days, the police and local volunteers scoured the area surrounding the motel where Melissa's car had been found. The winter chill made every search slower, the icy ground and fog rolling through the trees concealing everything. Detectives suspected she had fled on foot, maybe even hitched a ride out of town. Others thought she might have hidden somewhere nearby, waiting for the attention to die down before resurfacing. But as time passed, hope of finding her alive began to fade. Then, a week later, a fisherman spotted something tangled in a branch along the riverbank, a dark fabric with a plastic tag glinting in the sun. When he pulled it out, it turned out to be a uniform jacket, the Ridgeview Plaza logo still visible on the sleeve. Melissa Grant's security badge was clipped neatly to the front. The discovery changed everything. Dive teams were called in, and after hours of dragging the river, they found her body caught between rocks downstream. The scene was grim. Her clothes were soaked, her skin pale from the cold, but it was the bruising on her arms that caught the attention of investigators. They didn't fit the pattern of someone who had simply fallen in or taken her own life. There were marks around her wrists, faint but distinct, suggesting she had been restrained. An autopsy later confirmed what detectives had begun to suspect: Melissa hadn't drowned accidentally. She had fought back. The injuries on her hands and neck told a story of struggle, of someone trying to defend herself. The news stunned everyone who had known her. For months, she had been the face of trust and order, then a thief, and now a victim. The puzzle didn't make sense. Who would have wanted her dead? As investigators dug deeper into her life, they uncovered a hidden side few had seen. Phone records and surveillance from the motel revealed that Melissa hadn't been alone in her final days. She had been meeting a man named Ryan Cole, an ex-con with a record for burglary and fencing stolen goods. It turned out Melissa had met him months earlier during a routine patrol when he'd been caught loitering behind one of the mall's loading docks. She hadn't reported him, and instead they had kept in touch. When she began taking items from the stores, Ryan had helped her sell some of them quietly through online markets. According to investigators, their relationship started as a partnership built on secrecy, but things changed once the jewelry theft became too large to hide. Melissa wanted to disappear with the money and start fresh. Ryan wanted his share. Their last meeting at the motel, police believed, turned violent when she tried to end things and take everything for herself. In a panic or rage, he killed her and dumped her body in the river before fleeing. A month later, police found Ryan in another town after he tried to pawn one of the missing necklaces. The serial number matched the stolen merchandise. Under questioning, he denied everything, but the evidence was overwhelming. He was charged with robbery, fraud, and murder. The case closed quietly, without the sensational headlines that Melissa's downfall had first drawn. Ridgeview Plaza eventually replaced her, cleaned out the locker where she had kept her things, and tried to move on. Yet those who had worked with her couldn't forget how easily she had fooled everyone, how quickly her calm professionalism had turned into deception. Melissa Grant's story became a cautionary tale whispered among the guards who came after her, a reminder that even those meant to protect can lose sight of what's right when they start to believe no one is watching.